Today's video is a student versus professional showdown. I am so excited. Here is my $20 set of Cotman watercolor paints, and this is a Winsor and Newton Professional that costs 3 times more. I don't know about this one, guys. We may be in for a shock. Let's go ahead and pick the colors that are going to battle it out. We have a lot of similar colors, but the one thing I noticed is that for Cotman, most of them are hues. Now, this doesn't necessarily make a difference. They will still be very similar, and hopefully we will be able to test them. Our first test has to be swatching, right? We want to see the vibrancy, we want to see that black line, see the opaqueness, all of that.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray.
Look at the difference between the alizarin crimson and the alizarin crimson hue. There's a big difference.
As you fade away, as you fade away.
Cotman is much darker than the Winsor and Newton version. It is quite different, guys.
As you fade away.
So the color on the pan is different, but when you look at it on paper, there isn't that much of a difference, is there?
As you fade away.
Say, without even drawing it, that this is the biggest difference I've seen between the two colors. This one has more of an orangey feel, and this one is a little darker. Do you see? They're all pretty transparent. Even the yellow ochre, which is usually a little bit opaque, you know, these lines are shown perfectly. First one, don't mind the bleed, okay? Lemon yellow hue versus Winsor lemon. They are very, very similar. They are both vibrant. I can't really say much about these. I didn't notice much of a difference. Alizarin crimson hue versus alizarin crimson. I think there is a slight difference. The alizarin crimson looks a little bit more vibrant than the alizarin crimson hue. Cerulean blue hue versus cerulean blue. The Winsor and Newton Professional version is much more granulated than the Cotman version, which was a little bit surprising for me. Here is where I noticed one of the things that I don't like about Winsor and Newton Professional that I don't see with the Cotman, which is the paint activation. I needed to add much more water, much more brush strokes to be able to activate the yellow ochre in the Winsor and Newton Professional, and that made a big puddle that you can see now that it's dry. You see all those harsh edges, whereas for the Cotman, it was, easy peasy. First stroke and we were done, and we were painting burnt umber, which is by far the biggest difference between the two. Cotman is pulling more to, black. It's a darker brown, whereas the Winsor Newton Professional, it's kind of an orangey burnt umber. You can definitely see a big difference between the two. Both paints are beautiful. I am very excited about these tests, and I don't see much of a difference yet. Let's play with the wet on wet. And we are going to make some blooms. Let's see how this goes. Let's go ahead and do the same for our professional version. I did not expect this. I am shocked. When you look at these, it is very, very clear that Cotman has much more control than Winsor and Newton. You can see clear blooms here. The yellow and the yellow ochre are a little bit faded, but you can definitely see some nice blooms. Here, For this one, it's a mess. I mean, it's a gorgeous mess, don't get me wrong, it's very vibrant. I love the yellow. You can see the cerulean blue, some alizarin crimson. I would call this one for Cotman, surprisingly enough. Let's see how some wet on wet squiggles look like with both paints. So this is Cotman. Is the Winsor and Newton Professional. This alizarin crimson is insane. Wet on wet, Cotman is clearly the winner. This leaves us with no doubts. There is no definition in these squiggles, okay? It's just a puddle of paint. Whereas for the Cotman one, you can definitely see the shape that I tried to give it. So yeah, Cotman is the winner. However, when you go to wet on dry, the Professional one is clearly the winner. Look at the difference in vibrancy for these guys. The results, they're just so unpredictable. I don't know what to expect anymore. Let's blend some colors and see how they behave. So let's use the crazy alizarin crimson. Oh, look at this vibrancy, guys. These paints are awesome. Look at that, guys. Such a pretty purple for both of ours. So this is Cotman, and it's exactly what I expected. So it starts with vibrant colors that meet in the middle, and you have a seamless mix that turns into a lovely, lovely purple. I love it. This is very, very gorgeous. And then for the Winsor and Newton, if I'm honest, it looks like hot mess, but for me, this is even more special because you have the vibrancy of the colors in the ends, and then they meet and there's purple, but there's also the alizarin crimson and the cerulean blue. If I had to pick, I would definitely pick the Professional because of, you know, the color mixes, whereas here it's much more flat. All there's left for us to do, guys, is to actually paint. I am keeping this real simple here, guys. Painting is the ultimate test, right? It is what we want those paints for, so we have to do it. The one test I cannot do right now, and that would take some time to do, would be to test the light fastness, meaning how long each one would last hanging on a wall before the colors would start to fade with the light. Now, assuming that the Cotman paints have more binding than the Professional paints and that the pigments aren't as strong, naturally the Professional painting would last much longer, right? But then, if we think about it, you know, professional watercolors are meant to be shown, whereas student paints, the one we use to practice, usually live inside our sketchbooks or a drawer somewhere, right? I can definitely see a difference, but I do not see that one is necessarily better than the other. This is definitely a draw. I can definitely see why professionals use Cotman so much. Did it surprise you, or was it what you expected? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you soon. Bye bye!